You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 138. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I want to talk about money. I want to talk about our relationship that we have with wealth. Now, I recently came back from a trip to Vegas and I did lots of people watching while I was there. I am not someone that gambles, but while I was in Vegas, I enjoyed walking around the different casinos and just noticing people's behavior. As you probably know, Vegas is known for its casinos, its gambling, its nightlife, its high-end shopping, and its shows. It's a really interesting city. It's definitely not a city that I would normally travel to. The only reason I went there is because I wanted to take my partner to see Adele, and she had a residency in Vegas. So it was the only place that we could go to see her. So while we were there, we were just exploring the city, going up and down the strip, and I had a few different observations that I made. I wanted to share those with you in this episode because as an entrepreneur, as someone that is listening to this episode, you likely have some interest in growing a business, probably a coaching business. And I think it's very important that you understand how you relate to money and the overall thoughts and emotions that come up when you are in places where there is money or where there's the possibility to make money, or also just overall your relationship with spending money. So one thing I noticed is just how many people sit in front of the slot machines for hours on end, just clicking away. And I have such a resistance to slot machines. If I were to gamble, I would much prefer a game where I could have some kind of control over the outcome or there be some kind of a strategy. And I give lots of respect and kudos to professional poker players and people that seem to have a way of understanding how the game works. And they're not just sitting at the table without any kind of control over the outcome. One of the reasons I don't like to use slot machines is because I know that I can create money because I know that I can create value. And I don't need a slot machine to create money for me. I feel that I have control over the value that I create. And it's something that I would encourage and invite you all to try on as a thought for yourself. Right now, how much do you really believe that you can create value? Because as long as you believe that you can create value and you produce and create value in this world, then you will see that value return to you in the form of money, in the form of paying clients. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, do not have this awareness. A lot of people don't believe in their power and ability to create value. So therefore, they abdicate that power and control to something outside of themselves, such as a slot machine, such as an employer, right? When you work for someone else, you are letting someone else have a lot of control over what you earn. Now, there are totally ways in which you can make yourself more valuable, even if you don't have a business and you're working for an organization, right? You still have the ability to show how you can provide more value to an organization and therefore justify a higher income and salary. But again, unfortunately, a lot of people don't believe that they create value. They just believe that the income they have is just what's given to them. So it was really fascinating to see a lot of people sit in front of slot machines and push buttons with the hope that they obviously win a jackpot or win money. And for me as an entrepreneur, I just think, why would I do that? Because I know that I could literally create money myself. So why would I want to hope that a slot machine can do that for me? Even with the potential of winning a certain jackpot, I just have no interest in that, because again, I go back to the truth that it took me a while to get there, because I used to, for many years, think I didn't have anything valuable to offer to others, and that my message and my voice didn't matter. I mean, this was a huge self-doubt that I carried for a long time. So it was fascinating to be walking through all these casinos in Vegas and seeing so many people that were, playing all these slot machines and, hoping that they would, cash out and win the jackpot. Now, the other interesting thing is, maybe you've heard this before, but when people do actually win the lottery, or, they win a big amount of money through gambling or whatever, scratching a lottery ticket, whatever it might be, there's this interesting psychological condition that often affects people who suddenly win or acquire a large sum of money. It's called sudden wealth syndrome. And there's a lot of different things that often happen when people experience sudden wealth syndrome. Oftentimes, people have a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. They have a lot of fear come up around losing the money. And these individuals tend to impulsively spend all of the money that they very quickly earn. Now, a lot of people who gamble, of course, they have one of the reasons that people gamble is they want to make money. They want to win the jackpot. And unfortunately, when people do win a lot of money, sudden wealth syndrome occurs. And this is what causes what is estimated to be 70% of lottery winners to go broke within just a few years. Now, really let that sink in. There have been different reports that have indicated that 70% of lottery winners have sudden wealth syndrome, and they go broke or bankrupt within just a few years. Isn't that wild? So while people think that, winning the jackpot is going to end up helping them, it often hurts them. So instead of helping you escape some financial trouble that you're in, you winning a jackpot actually just postpones an inevitable bankruptcy that you're more likely to incur. And I just think that is so wild. One of the other things I noticed while I was in Vegas is all of the different high-end luxury stores that there were. Now, I live in the Carolinas right now, and we don't have access to as much of the luxury and high-end shopping as there are in other bigger cities. And I'm not a big shopper myself. My wardrobe is pretty minimalistic. Like everyone knows in the academy, I have my uniform, so to speak. I wear my white polo for pretty much all of our calls. I like to keep it very simple. And while I was in Vegas, I decided there were all these different malls, and the malls are beautiful, just incredible. All the different art and just so stunning to walk around these malls. I noticed that there were so many high-end stores, yet so few people were in them. So there were a few stores that I would go inside, and I found that it was just my partner and I that were in these stores the entire time we were in them, like the 10 or 15 minutes that we spent browsing around these high-end stores. And I was just browsing. I wasn't looking to purchase anything. I was just so drawn in by the fashion and the design, the quality. They were name brands I'd never heard before, designers I'd never heard before. So I was curious, and I would go into these stores and I would just talk with the sales associates. I mean, often, like I said, we were the only ones in there. So they were able to give us their full attention, which was also very interesting, because most other stores, you might just have an associate just give you a quick check-in. Maybe they don't even notice you at all, or they might just say, hey, do you need help with anything? Are you looking for anything? And that's probably the most interaction you get. But with some of these stores, the associates were following us around and just literally taking clothes off of the racks and holding them up so I could try them on and then taking them off of me. It was a whole different experience. And as I hopped in and out of a few of these stores, I started to think about why there are so few people that are inside these high-end fashion stores, the luxury stores. And I came up with a few reasons that I think are behind this. And I want to share them with you, and I want to invite you to notice how your own relationship with wealth and with luxury and with high-end items, notice what comes up for you when I go through this. I think one of the main reasons why people don't even go inside of a high-end store is intimidation. I think that there's an inherent thought like you don't belong or you feel very out of place going inside a luxury store. The truth is you're allowed to go inside those stores, right? You're allowed to go in, you're allowed to ask questions, you're allowed to look at what's on the shelves, you are allowed to try on whatever you want to try on. There's not a bouncer at the door that's determining whether or not you are worthy to enter the store. So even though I didn't have an intention to buy anything, I still decided to go in the stores just to look and try things on and just make observations and just see what the different fashion trends are and the way the different designers, but what their style was. And it's interesting, like many people are just intimidated or afraid, so they don't even bother. They think I don't belong there. But I think the other main reason that people don't go into high-end stores is because of the price aversion. Many people assume, well, why would I go into the store when I just can't afford anything in the store to begin with? So why would I embarrass myself or just end up disappointed by going in that store when I just know that I can't afford it anyway? Now, one of my mentors years ago told me something. I'm going to share it with you. And that my mentor said, never say the sentence, I can't afford it. Just never utter that sentence. Don't even think it in your brain. Whenever you say, I can't afford it, you shut down any possibility for you to be creative, for you to be resourceful, and for you to actually afford things that you want. So instead of saying, I can't afford it, which is one of the most limiting sentences to have, you either tell yourself, I don't want it, or how can I afford it? I'll say that once more. Instead of ever having the thought, I can't afford it, you tell yourself, you get honest with yourself, and it's either an I don't want it, because sometimes we say, oh, I can't afford it, but the truth is we just don't want something. So you might as well be honest with yourself and just say, I don't want it. Or you do want something, and in that case, rather than say, I can't afford it, you say, well, how can I afford it? Once you ask yourself the question, how can I afford it, your brain will start to search for answers and solutions. You start to open up creativity. You start to prime your brain for abundance and wealth. Okay, there have been times in the past when originally I thought I couldn't afford something, but then I said, wait a second, how can I afford it? And my brain got to work and I was able to come up with ways to afford things that originally I thought I couldn't afford. Okay, so instead of having the thought I can't afford it, you want to think, how can I afford it? For all things in life. See how things, maybe currently right now, there's some things that you've been interested in and you just tell yourself, well, I can't afford that. So, oh well. But what if you looked at that same service or product and you approached it with how can I afford it? Like, what would it actually look like for me to afford it? What ways could I come up with to allow me to afford this thing or this service? Okay, so you'll notice how sneaky this sentence comes up when you're around friends and family and you're shopping with them. You'll hear them say, oh, I just can't afford this. Oh, I just can't afford that. Let them have their thoughts, but I want you to have ownership of your thoughts. Don't have that thought, I can't afford it. It's such an important thing for you. Now, whenever I shop, I make an intention to go into high-end and luxury stores, even if I don't plan to buy anything, because I think it's important for your self-concept to be around success and wealth and quality. Right? You want to put yourself, if you're someone that wants to embody quality and success, then it is important to put yourself in environments where you are in that space and that energy. So you want to put yourself around quality and success. Like, I sell a high ticket coach training program. So I like to be around other quality environments and luxury places to reinforce and to just solidify the quality that I also offer. So it helps align you with the value that you offer the world when you put yourself in that environment. It elevates your own idea of yourself and your own worth. Again, you might not be into fashion, right? I told you earlier, I'm not really into it that much, but I still think energetically, like I leave, every time I go in a high-end store, I leave energetically noticing a shift in my confidence, in my overall feeling of myself. There's something energizing that comes with going into a very high-end store, spending time there, just looking around, asking questions. Again, you are under no pressure to buy anything, but you're in the energy of success. You're in the atmosphere of luxury and high end. Now, notice like even the resistance that you might have to those words, luxury and high end. Maybe you think that sounds very materialistic or greedy. Why? Like, why do you have that thought? Again, you don't have to buy any of those things. You don't have to care about those things. It's just about being in an environment, in an atmosphere where you're surrounding yourself with quality, with luxury. So that way you can also be a person that embodies that yourself, that emanates that energy. Okay, I offer a quality, for what many would consider a top tier luxury coach training program, right? So I like to be in environments where I align myself with that. When you are walking past a high-end store or just you see something of high value and you say to yourself, you know what, that's for rich people. I don't belong there. That's not for me. The moment you start having that thought, you put up a divide. You tell yourself, well, that's for them, but that's not for me. I'm not one of those people. And when you do that, you block yourself from wealth and prosperity and abundance. So be very careful and be very aware of how you describe yourself in relation to wealthy, rich, and successful people. You have inside of you the capacity to be wealthy, rich, and successful. So instead of constantly comparing yourself, creating an us versus them, like there's me and then there's the rich people, there's me and then there's the successful people, right? You want to start to put yourself in the same category, in the same bucket, just in the same energy space, okay? So don't divide yourself between you and wealthy people. That's why going inside a high-end luxury store, the next time you're out shopping and the holiday season is around the corner, the next time you are out shopping at a mall, which I'm sure at some point you probably will be, even if you're shopping for someone else, my invitation for you is to go into a high-end store, like find the most luxury store in the mall or in the shopping center. And just go into it and look around and talk with the associates there and look at the price tag of things and just notice what comes up for you. Okay? Notice if your brain starts to go, oh my gosh, I can't afford this, or I will never afford this. And just ease yourself into saying either I don't want it or, you know what? How can I afford it? One of the stores that I find that I love going into whenever I see one is whenever I see a Rolex, whenever I see a place where they're selling a Rolex watch, I go in, or any kind of like high-end Swiss watches, like Patek Philippe. I will go into the store and I will talk with the associates and I will try on the watches. I will try on 5-figure watches, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 watches. And I will talk with the associate about the watch. And I remember like the first time I went into a Rolex. I mean, first of all, for years of my life, it's so interesting. I would just walk past them because I just thought, oh, that's just not for me. That's just not where I shop. That's where the rich people shop. I just will never be able to afford that. And then it's like one day I just decided, why not go inside? Like, I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to go inside. I'm allowed to ask questions. I belong there. Just like you, anyone else belongs in all these spaces. So I remember years ago, my first time I went into a Rolex and Rolex store. And I talked with the associate. I was trying on the watches. And I noticed like how weird I felt the first time. Just like, who am I? A lot of them, like imposter syndrome even came up. Who am I to put on this watch? Like, does this belong on me? Do I deserve this? Why should I be doing this? Even though I don't think I can afford it. And then I noticed like how I could coach myself out of all that like mental garbage and switch the narrative to why not me? Like, I deserve to wear this if I want it, right? If I really wanted it, why not deserve it? Just like anyone else. So whenever I shop now, I go into, especially if it's a Rolex store, I will go in and I will try on the watches again, just as a way, just like when you go to the gym, like if you stop going to the gym, you obviously will lose the progress. You'll lose the muscle that you've accumulated. So our physical fitness has, we need momentum. We need to continue making progress. Well, mental fitness works the same way. So that's why, like, even though I've come so far in my own relationship with wealth and success and money, I still like to put myself in places where it's like I'm still strengthening that muscle. So for me, one of the ways I do that is by going into a high-end store or a luxury store like Rolex and trying on different watches. There was one watch I saw that was $300,000 watch. And it's like noticing if my brain goes, well, you can't afford that, to saying, you know what? Yes, I can. It's just a matter of asking myself how, or just deciding I don't want it, right? So again, remind them, just like you go to the gym, but then when you stop, if you stop for a long period of time and you go back in, you're going to be rusty. Well, if you're not putting yourself in a mindset that supports you, then when you start to put yourself back into an empowering mindset, you're going to be a little bit rusty. You got to remind yourself of the truth of who you are. So hopefully you're starting to imagine yourself the next time you do shop. My invitation again is for you to go into a high-end store, step into it, even if it's only to browse. There's no one that's going to force you to buy anything. They'll probably ask you questions like as they're supposed to do, and they may invite you to try on things, but like that's their job, but there's still no requirement that you buy something, right? So just go in, browse, bask in the atmosphere of being around high end, being around luxury, being around success. This doesn't make you a greedy. I want to be really clear and end on this. This doesn't make you a greedy person or a selfish person or a materialistic person. This is not what any of this is about. I don't want the takeaway of this episode to be, oh, okay, he's telling us to go and spend our money on high-end things. No, not at all. My invitation for you is to be in an atmosphere of high-end luxury, quality, and success. So that way you get yourself aligned with that and you embody that energy. You take on that presence. You are able to emanate that, especially as a coach and an entrepreneur. If you want to be considered a high value, high quality coach, right, that it's important for you to align with that concept of yourself. And I believe putting yourself in other high quality luxury environments is one way to do that. Remember, there's no such thing as I can't afford it. There's either I don't want it or how can I afford it? All right, those were some insights I had from being in the Sin City, Viva Las Vegas, baby. So I hope you took something away from that. Thanks for listening. Before you go, I'm going to leave a clip from a student inside the academy so you can listen to their story and take away your insights. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't yet, as I said in the last episode, please do leave a review on this podcast, whether it's on Apple, whether it's on Spotify. Spotify listeners, you are winning right now. Come on, Apple users. Go into your podcast app, leave a review. Let's see which listening audience is more generous. So leave a podcast review. It means the world to me. All right, thanks, Salt, and I'll see you in the next episode. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coach's secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.